So the next kind of robustness check that we want to do is rate limiting. So rate limiting is something that's kind of special to Microsoft Graph and only to a few endpoints, but it's quite common, right? Rate limiting. I mentioned about X.com. There's OpenAI API at the moment that is being heavily used. They're only going to give you so many requests within a given time limit. And if you exceed that, you can get throttling. So rate limiting is a common practice, and it's now in Microsoft Graph as well. So let's show a demo of how we can show the proxy work with rate limiting. I'm just going to clear this down and show an app that I already have running in the background. There we go. So I've got a web application which is sending a number of requests to Microsoft Graph, and it's going to show a graph, and it's going to show the number of requests that have sent over a duration of time. Now, these are the way that the rate limiting works is that you for every request you get information back from that API that tells you, how many units you've actually got left, when the reset will happen, so when you get the next kind of quota as well. And these are things that you have to check as a developer. So one of the things that you might do is just go, hey, I'm just going to use fetch, right? Because what's wrong with fetch? I'm just going to send a request. I'm going to put a sleep on there, and it should be fine. Chances are, though, that's going to fail. That's at some point, the arbitrary time that you're giving it is not going to be sufficient. One way in which you can handle rate limiting, certainly with Microsoft Graph as well, is to use the Microsoft Graph SDKs and use the rate limiting middleware. So there's a middleware that you can add to the SDK, which will handle this rate limiting scenario. So this will handle all the intricacies of, backing off, making sure that you send requests through in a kind of a more timely fashion, rather than just throwing them all through in one go. Like, here's 100, see if you can deal with it. It might be like drips and drabs, like a dripping tap. Just constantly sending a message and get a request and getting a response back, and knowing that it's just going to work and you keep in your quota. So let's just show how the proxy works with rate limiting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the proxy, but I'm going to start the proxy using a configuration file. So by default, we use the M365 proxy RC file, but you can just create your own config file and say, hey, I want to use this file instead, that can have a specific scenario that you want to test. So in the presets folder that you get with the download, we have a preset for the rate limiting for Graph. So in here, we can see it's a much slimmed down version of this file, which I showed you before. And we have the retry after plugin, which injects the retry time. And we have this rate limiting plugin as well, with some configuration settings, like what is the cost per turn, what is the actual rate limit that we've got, and when should you retry after so many seconds. Okay, and also in this point here, which I didn't cover in the other file actually, is this is the list of URLs that the proxy is using to detect. So if it sees these requests going over the wire with these addresses, it will then invoke this behavior, the configurations that you've got set up. So in here, if you wanted to add any API, you just come into here and then just add your own entry as well. Again, that's fully documented. I'm not going to go into that today, but it's fully documented on the wiki if you're wanting to use the proxy outside of Graph. Okay, so just want to make sure I didn't make a change on there. And let's start the proxy here. Okay, so that is now running. I've got web server running in the background, which is running the code that we saw. So if I go to localhost 3002, yeah, okay, so that has started. Okay, if I just go back to my index file. So let's just show what happens when we're just using fetch. So that's going to add the code in there. I'm just going to restart it. You can also clear the console by just pressing the C key, by the way, for when things get a little bit chaotic in the console. But this will start to. It's just doing backoffs at the moment, so you can see that things are being passed through the proxy. And they're coming through a pretty good rate, actually. So this is just the delay that's been added in. See how long this is going to take. So I don't want to take this whole webinar up for this. Oh, there we go. So now everything's starting to fail, and you can see all of these, we've gone over the limit, and we've not got these retries to actually go and then get the request and then be successful. You can see that the successful request has just kind of stayed low, but there's still requests that are going out there. So that's what would happen with just using fetch. But if we switch to use the Microsoft Graph and the middleware, save that. Just clear it and restart this. This will now start to drip. So this will drip feed the request through to the graph until the graph returns a header that, after say like 80% of the rate limit has been, the quota has been reached, the Graph API will return you a value of here's how many requests you've got left. So the middleware can inspect that and then handle that scenario to make sure that it's slowing down as you're kind of getting towards that quota, so that your requests still keep carrying on. Now, Proxy is just sat here just making sure that those behaviors are being adhered to by your code. So it's a very useful thing. There's all the requests gone through. The quota probably just got renewed, so it just went, yeah, I can throw more through, and now it's going to go, hang on, I'm getting closer to my limit again, let's slow down. But it just keeps on going, and we don't get failures. And from a user perspective, that's great, because there's things happening in the background that we don't know about, we don't care about, we just want our application to work. And if we've got a little bit of slowness, that's not so bad. But we don't want failures. We don't want things to go bang and people lose their work. So that's how rate limiting works. So let's close that one down. Let's close that one down.